I remember there was one lady who told me specifically like, hey, you need to lose 4 kg, if not you can't make it in this industry. And because of that, I started restricting myself in what I eat. If I went above 50 kg, I felt very unworthy of as a person. And there was this constant talk about if you are struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with depression, it's just all in your head. And if you are struggling with mental health, it's just because you don't have a relationship with God. You just need to pray. That was also when I started getting addicted to tattoos. And I used tattoos because I felt that it was able to numb my pain so that I don't feel the emotional pain, but I feel it on the physical instead. I was born into a Christian family, but I felt that I treated church as a routine and I didn't really have much of a relationship with God. Growing up, I was bullied a lot in school. I remember one time in secondary school, one of my friends actually took one of my shoe and decided to run around the corridor with it and thinking it was funny even though I told them to stop. There was another time where after performing on stage in school, I was sang out of tune, and instead of encouraging me, I had a bunch of schoolmates who started laughing at me. And because of that, I started developing a lot of security issues, and who I am was based on my talents and not really based on who Christ is. As I carried on in later in life, as I entered art school, I was in not really much of a great company. I mixed with a lot of friends who use alcohol, who use drinking, who use smoking to cope with their stress and anxiety. And that was also when I started getting addicted to tattoos. And I used tattoos because I felt that it was able to numb my pain so that I don't feel the emotional pain, but I feel it on the physical instead. I started developing insecurities with my body, especially when I went into the music and the performing industry, because people are so concerned about how the way you look. So from that, I became very insecure because I remember there was one lady who told me specifically like, hey, you need to lose 4 kg, if not you can't make it in this industry. And because of that, I started restricting myself in what I eat, and I felt the need to always constantly weigh myself and make sure that I don't go above 50 kg. If I went above 50 kg, I felt very unworthy of as a person. During COVID was when my mental health struck the lowest point, because I was sharing a room with my sister, and starting out we already didn't have much of a good relationship, and that was when tension started to rise. And those arguments kind of caused me a lot of anxiety. And the words she say sometimes can pierce pretty hard. Things like just from her look of judging me for the way I behave. And that kind of also made me develop anxiety, and both anxiety and depression. And I struggled a lot with insomnia, and I couldn't sleep because I had this thoughts of wanting to end my own life because I felt very unworthy as a person. And I constantly felt the need of being accepted, and I felt that I wasn't accepted. I felt very, very rejected. Even with my own parents as well, I felt that my parents favored my sister more. And yeah, I felt like no one accepted me for who I am. And I felt the need to constantly change myself in order to make people happier. Even though I was within a community in church, I think because I was always seen as a happy-go-lucky person, and people assumed that everything was fine, even though it was a front. So I was always left alone. I was always isolated within the community. People had cliques all around, and I felt like even when I went to church, not many people approached me to talk to me. And yeah, I felt very lonely. I felt that even though I was in church, I was alone because I didn't have much of a relationship with God. I thought that church was meant to be a place where you can be with community, but I didn't feel like I was in one. One reason why I really took a while to decide that I wanted to leave church to have a fresh start was because I was already serving 3 ministries, and I felt the need to uphold the responsibility to be in all the ministries. I felt like if I were to leave, that everything would just fall apart, and they needed me there. I didn't really understand that serving was supposed to be out from the overflow of love from God rather than just serving as a job. It was only after about 1 or 2 years where I had a conviction from God that, hey, this serving thing, I don't want you to let serving be the reason why you feel you need to stay in a church, but I feel that this is a time where I want you to move in order to have a fresh start and strengthen my relationship with you. I want you to focus on receiving instead of giving. And that's when I decided to leave my previous church. During COVID, I also decided to seek help through chat, and I found my therapist, Mei Yi. And yes, therapy definitely helped. It definitely helped me learn strategies on how to cope with anxiety and depression. However, I was lacking something, which is community in church. I didn't feel like I had anyone to talk to about the topic of mental health, not even my parents, because I felt that this whole topic of mental health was still a stigma, especially with my parents. And there was this constant talk about if you are struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with depression, it's just all in your head. And if you are struggling with mental health, it's just because you don't have a relationship with God. You just need to pray. Because of that, I was fearful of my parents' judgment, and I didn't like the feeling of being judged all the time. One night, even though I was not very happy in church, but I felt like I couldn't let go because of serving. But one night, God convicted me and told me, hey, I think it's time for you to let go. It's time for you to have a fresh start. And that's when I decided to look into searching for other churches. I think what made me take my first step to give church a chance again, to find a new community, was little voices who I didn't know were from God that tell me, hey, it's time to take a step of faith. It's time to heal. It's time to do something new in your life, because I can see how broken you are. And if you've tried all things, like all the earthly desires that I used to have, if you tried all the drinking, all the tattooing, and it doesn't work, why not try actually growing in your relationship with me? And that made me decide to take my first step of church, of finding community, and really finding who God really is to me. I heard of Kingdom City first through Facebook, but what led me to actually decide to give Kingdom City a try was because I was a fan of this influencer on TikTok. Her name is Sarah, and I really wanted to meet her. That somehow made me decide to hey, why not I just drop by church? Maybe I'll get to see her. But guess who I met instead? I met God instead. And that was when I had my first ever encounter with God. What happened was, during service, while we were worshiping, Pastor Andrew was praying over us, and I saw this vision of God with his arms open wide, and he was saying, come run to me, you're home right now. There were so many people who were really hungry for God's presence, and that really inspired me to really want to grow closer to God. There were pastors and leaders who, instead of judging me for my anxiety and depression, really stood with me in prayer and really prayed with me and really checked in on me and made sure that I was doing good, really checked in with my mental health. how I'm feeling. And I felt like they became family to me. They became spiritual sisters, brothers, and dads and moms to me. In my previous church, I think what really made me feel like I was walking on thin ice is because my dad was kind of in the church, kind of like a church leader over there, and I felt that there was a lot of fear within, especially in the young adult community, that if they were to get too close to me as a friend, I might tell things to my dad. And things over there also, because we are in a small community, it did get spread around very easily. So I didn't really feel like I can trust people. I didn't feel like I could trust the leaders also, because the leaders knew my dad, and I was also very anxious and very fearful that whatever confidential things or struggles that I tell them, they might tell my dad. It was only through moving to Kingdom City that I realized, hey, my parents are not here. So this is a safe space, and I felt that I could open up to leaders. I felt that I could finally trust leaders again and trust to tell them and share with them things that I'm struggling with, because they will not judge me and they are here to journey with me. Because of how much I grew as a person, grew in my relationship with God, it gave me a newfound love for really helping people find home, really helping people find God again. Because I was once in that position of being lost, and so I wanted to help the lost find home. And that started in me this love for evangelism, love for reaching out. And that's when I started my community called Safe Space. Safe Space is basically this bridge between trying to find a church. So I realized that people take a while to find a church that suits them. So while waiting and finding for a church, they should have a community so that they don't feel alone. So that's when I started this safe space to give them a community, to give them a Christian community and a space where they can feel safe, where they can feel that they are not alone, they're not journeying alone, because I believe that building a relationship with Christ shouldn't be done alone, but it should be done in a community. I remember one of the most impactful time in my life, and that made me realize the good that I'm doing for God, was during last Easter, when I did this Easter outreach under my block, and I invited 4 youths to Easter. And the 4 that I invited, they all gave their life to Christ. And the best thing that happened was, during this Easter, 3 of the brothers got baptized, and hearing them share their testimony really brought tears of joy in my eyes, because I've really seen how much they have grown as Christians, how much they have grown in their relationship with God. Like, all 4 of them are now serving in church. One of them is even a youth connect leader. And it's like, wow, God can really use you to change lives. The first breakthrough I had in finding my identity in Christ was, I remember when I first entered Kingdom City, and I was trying to find where can I serve in? And I immediately fell into, okay, since I served in worship in my previous church, let's try worship again. But this time round, I didn't get through the auditions. And the feeling of rejection, the feeling of placing my identity on my talent, all came rushing back. I started feeling the feeling of worthlessness again. And then it was through deliverance, it was through prayer, that something just clicked in me that, hey, God might have a better plan for you. Maybe He doesn't want to use you in that way. The verse, He makes all things beautiful in His time, just came flooding in my head, and I realized that God's plan is better. And if I can surrender and trust in Him in all my life, no matter what happens in my life, no matter how I do my job, what my talent is, I have my relationship with Christ, and that alone is enough. Sometimes, even though my relationship with God was really strong, we do stray away from God. And one thing that pulled me away from God last year was having my first ever relationship with a guy. Initially, I thought that he was the one. We were already having thoughts about getting married, having kids. So when God put a stop into this relationship, it really broke me. I lost my identity with Christ again. And I realized all along that I was idolizing relationships. I was putting relationships above God, even though this guy wasn't as rooted in Christ. I still continued being with him because I felt the need to be with him because I thought I'll be lonely without him. I felt if I didn't have anyone, then I'm nothing. Not knowing that during our single season, why God keeps you single is because he wants you all to himself. And that's such a beautiful thing. And it's not that he wants you to be lonely. Another breaking point, while healing in my breakup, I remember lying on bed one night because I was in so much pain and I was so angry with God. I was like, God, if this relationship was not for me, why didn't you take it right at the moment when we got together? Why did you have to wait until we were together for 4 or 5 months, then you put a stop to it? I was in so much pain that I was, God, why not you just take me away? Because, I mean, life in heaven will be so much easier. You won't have to deal with imperfect people. You can just be with God. And to me, that was a much easier way. And that was when God really reminded me, yes, a voice which clearly sounded like God said, why are you making your boyfriend, your ex-boyfriend, the king of your life? Who's your king? Am I not your king? And that really gave me a wake-up call. And I was like, yes, now that I'm single, I should use this time to heal my relationship with God and just use this time to really draw close to him. When I thought that I was alone in this breakup, I remember asking God for just one thing. God, I'm feeling alone right now. Can you send me people? And I didn't know that God would answer my prayer, but happens the day after, one of my schoolmates who used to be in Kingdom City, Singapore, Deborah, she happened to relocate with her husband. And I believe that wasn't a coincidence, but that was God really hearing my cry and hearing my prayer. So yes, God definitely answers you. He knows how you feel and he will send help. He sends people to really help you during your lowest. After the breakup, I have definitely grown as a person, especially in sharpening my gift of prophecy. I'm being able to hear God's voice a lot clearer. I have received the gift of being able to really understand what people are going through during their hard times and being able to advise them through hearing God's voice. And I think that was a gift that I developed and grew in after my breakup. And I definitely received freedom from rejection. I'm no longer afraid that I get rejected because I know that there's one person who cares for me, who will never reject me, and that is God. And yeah, I think through my 3 years, one thing that also healed within me is forgiveness. I remember holding a lot of pain and bitterness towards my parents and towards my previous church. But it was through this course last year called Wholeness. And I remember Pastor David sharing about forgiveness is not for the other person, but forgiveness is for yourself. Because if you don't forgive a person, you unintentionally hold a lot of bitterness within you. And that forms a barricade between you and God, and we don't want a barricade between us and God. Forgiving the person removes that barricade so we can be reunited in our relationship with God again. I remember that during one of the wholeness lessons with Pastor David, he had us say this entire whole forgiveness prayer. Basically, this prayer goes something like, I let go of this bitterness and this expectation I have of you, because sometimes we forget that parents are also humans, and we sometimes unintentionally see them as God, not forgetting that they do make mistakes. And sometimes the way they treat you is because of how they were treated as a child. So saying this prayer of letting go and forgiving, giving him grace, just like how God gives you forgiveness and grace, really helped me break that bitterness in me that I didn't know I had. I think because of that, I'm able to hold proper conversations with my dad now. And I don't look at him with such fear, with such bitterness and anger. And I'm actually able to look at him just like how God looks at him, with love, with grace. And I'm able to see him also as a child of God. I think with my sister, it's also similar. She's not in Singapore anymore, she's in Perth. But I feel that this love of reaching out to the lost, and I'm so excited to let more people know about God, that she was one of the first that I wanted to share about my transformed life. So I definitely knew that the first step was to forgive her, was to show her the love that God has given me. So I started praying for her. I started declaring healing over her life, healing over her mental health, because she herself also struggles with mental health. And I feel that God is using me to show her what having a relationship with God can be like, how God's love can feel like, how God's care can feel like. Tattoo used to be my addiction, and I keep on saying like, okay, I'm just gonna get one. But no, the one doesn't become one. It becomes two, it becomes three, it becomes four, it becomes five, and then six. It was my form of comfort. Like, instead of finding comfort in God, I found comfort in tattoos, because I felt that that pain was so relieving. Not knowing that actually tattoo was a form of self-harm. And I mean, our bodies is a temple of Christ, and Christ won't want us to hurt ourselves. I don't feel the need to get tattoos, because I found healthier alternatives to release that pain through actually praying to God and talking to him, and honestly telling God, hey, I'm struggling, I need your help right now. And yes, God will always, without fail, remind me of his love, of how he's always beside me. A lot of people may have this misconception in their head that with anxiety, with depression, or with mental health, I can just pray it away. But sometimes you do need therapy. And I believe that God created therapists for a reason. So yes, it's okay to seek help. It's so difficult sometimes when you're struggling to decide to isolate by yourself. But I would say, based on experience, that isolating yourself from community just makes it worse. So really be with community, learn how to trust, learn how to open up. And I believe that God will send people into your life to heal you and to restore your brokenness. We need to remember that a church is not a place with perfect people. A church is a hospital. Yes, you will definitely get hurt by people, but don't let the people in church prevent you from wanting a relationship with God. Give God a chance again, because God will definitely change your life. He's transformed my life. He's definitely helped me through my hardest time, because we need God and we can't do life without God. Yeah. To anyone here who is struggling with mental health, who is struggling with depression, anxiety, or who's thinking if they should give church a try, or even to the point of using any form of addiction like tattoos to numb that pain, I would tell you, give God a chance. Let Him love you, because Jesus really, really loves you a lot. Even though you might not feel like it, He's there for you. He's there to guide you. You're not doing life alone. Like, no matter how far you are away from God, the thing is, you can't run away from Him, because He's omnipresent, He's all around, and He's there watching out for you, just like a dad watches over his children.